His drinking companion, a Novaxian named Ren, responded while adjusting her throat sacs.
That's just... what do the humans call it? Cute?
No, you don't understand, Krathos insisted, his antennae twitching with barely contained excitement. I mean, anything. Have you seen the latest incident report from Station Delta 7? The pair sat in what had become the de facto alien bar aboard humanity's first multi-species space station. Originally designed as a cultural exchange hub, it had quickly devolved into what humans called a watering hole. Not that anyone was complaining. Turns out getting slightly inebriated was one of the few truly universal constants among sapient species. Ren's scales shifted to a curious shade of blue-green. No. What happened? So there's this human maintenance worker, right? Tara Martinez. She's doing routine checks on the outer hull. Standard stuff, making sure the cosmic radiation shielding is holding up. Then she spots something unusual in one of the maintenance crawl spaces. Don't tell me. Ren's scales rippled with anticipation. Yep. A Zentari Voidstalker had somehow made its nest there. You know, those massive space-dwelling predators that even the Crixian battle fleets avoid. By the first sun, those things are apex predators. They've been known to tear apart small ships for fun. Krathos took a long sip from his fermented nectar through a specially designed straw. Exactly. So what does this human do when she finds not just a Voidstalker, but one that's apparently given birth to a clutch of cubs? Please tell me she called station security and evacuated the sector. Nope. Krathos's mandibles clicked in what could only be described as gleeful disbelief. She noticed the mother was injured, probably got caught in some debris while looking for a safe place to nest. And you know what humans are like when they find an injured anything. Ren's scales shifted to a pale yellow, the Novaxian equivalent of a facepalm. She didn't. She absolutely did. Called into her supervisor, said she was taking an early lunch break, and proceeded to spend the next 4 hours gaining the trust of an injured apex predator that could have swallowed her whole without chewing. How is she still alive? That's the thing about humans. They have this... what do they call it? This vibe that somehow lets dangerous creatures know they're trying to help. By the time her supervisor came looking for her, she had already set up a makeshift veterinary station in the crawl space, treated the mother's wounds with her emergency medkit, and was hand-feeding the cubs with protein paste from her suit's emergency rations. The bar had grown quieter as other patrons tuned into the conversation. A Gelrathi defense specialist named Mox, whose species was known for their stoic nature, couldn't help but join in. You're making this up. I wish I was, Krathos replied. But it gets better. The station's xenobiologists wanted to study the family, maybe relocate them somewhere safer. But Martinez, she insisted they stay until the cubs were strong enough to travel through deep space on their own. Said something about not separating families and responsible wildlife management. So what happened? Someone else called from across the bar. Well, now we have a Voidstalker family living in a specially designated section of the station's outer hull. Martinez visits them every day during her maintenance rounds. The mother actually greets her now. Does this weird space dance thing when she sees Martinez approaching. The cubs? They follow her tool belt around like it's a toy. Ren's scales had shifted through so many colors of disbelief that she was starting to look like one of Earth's auroras. And Station Command just allowed this? They tried to argue at first, but then Martinez gave them what humans call puppy dog eyes, and started talking about Earth's endangered species programs. Next thing you know, Station Delta 7 is officially designated as a Voidstalker wildlife sanctuary. A young Tralaxian scientist, whose tentacles were wrapped around what appeared to be their fifth glass of something fluorescent, wobbled over to the conversation. But that's not even the craziest part. I was there for my research rotation when this happened. You know what Martinez did next? The bar collectively leaned in. She started an educational program. Now there's a viewing window installed near the sanctuary section. Twice a week, she gives lectures about Voidstalker behavior to anyone who's interested. The mother actually participates, shows off hunting techniques to the cubs while Martinez explains their ecological role in space. It's become the station's biggest tourist attraction. Krathos nodded enthusiastically. I heard the Zentari High Council is sending a delegation next month. Apparently, they've been trying to study Voidstalker breeding patterns for centuries, but could never get close enough without being attacked. Now they're going to learn from a human maintenance worker who basically turned an apex predator into a house cat. Speaking of house cats, Mox interjected. Did you hear about what happened on Colony World X-227? The bar's attention shifted seamlessly to the new story. everyone knowing it would be yet another tale of humanity's inexplicable ability to befriend the dangerous and domesticate the wild. Oh no, Ren's scales flickered with amused dread. What did they do this time? So there's this human colonist, Madison Taylor. She's one of their veterinarians, animal doctors. Mox explained for the benefit of species less familiar with human terminology. She notices that the native apex predator population, these massive six-legged creatures that hunt in packs, is declining due to some sort of bacterial infection affecting their young. Let me guess. Cathrix's antennae drooped in preemptive exhaustion. She decided to help? Better. She set up a complete pediatric clinic for predator cubs, built it right on the edge of their hunting grounds. The adults would bring their sick cubs to her doorstep, wait patiently while she treated them, and then carry them back to their dens. That's impossible, someone muttered. Apex predators don't just trust like that. Humans have this thing about them. Ren tried to explain, her scales shifting to a thoughtful purple. It's like they broadcast some sort of universal "I'm here to help" signal that transcends species barriers. Did you know they have an entire profession called wildlife rehabilitation back on Earth? I looked it up once, Cathrix added. They've been doing this since before they had powered flight. There are documents showing humans caring for injured predators, raising abandoned cubs, and releasing them back into the wild. They literally built their civilization while simultaneously running nature's daycare. The Tralaxian scientists' tentacles curled in what their species considered a smile. You want to know what I think? I think it's because humans are predators themselves. The bar went quiet as everyone considered this. Think about it, the scientist continued, gesturing with a tentacle that only slightly missed their drink. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. They understand predator psychology from the inside out. They know exactly how to approach dangerous creatures because, on some level, they speak the same language. But they're so soft, Mox objected. No claws, no fangs, minimal natural armor. That's exactly it, Cathrix exclaimed. They don't register as a threat. They're predators who don't look like predators. It's brilliant evolutionary strategy when you think about it. They're dangerous enough to understand other dangerous species, but they don't trigger defensive responses. Ren's scales shifted to the deep blue of revelation. So when a human approaches an injured predator, the predator sees a fellow hunter offering help, but doesn't feel threatened. The Tralaxian finished. It's why every human space vessel has at least one story about crew members adopting dangerous creatures. It's why we keep getting incident reports about humans rehabilitating everything from space-dwelling leviathans to microscopic defensive swarms. Remember that time on mining colony Beta 3? Mox added, warming to the topic. When they found those crystalline entities everyone thought were hostile? Oh no. Cathrix's mandibles clicked in anticipation. What happened? Turns out they were silicon-based life forms that had been trapped in the deeper mineral deposits. Every other species was treating them as a security threat because they kept absorbing mining equipment. Then this human geologist, Alex Rivera, noticed they were actually trying to build something. Don't tell me. Yep. They weren't hostile. They were trapped juveniles trying to build crystalline growth chambers. They needed specific minerals to mature, and the mining equipment happened to contain those minerals. Rivera figured it out, set up a controlled growing environment for them, and now Beta 3 is home to a thriving crystalline nursery. They even help with the mining now, point out mineral deposits in exchange for the materials they need. The bar had fallen into a contemplative silence, broken only by the occasional clink of glasses and whir of atmospheric processors. You know what the really weird part is? Ren said finally, her scales settling into a philosophical shade of green gold. Humans don't even think this is special. To them, it's just what you do. If something needs help, you help it. Doesn't matter if it's a tiny Earth kitten or a space-dwelling nightmare that could eat a small ship. I asked a human about that once, Cathrix remembered. Why they're so quick to help dangerous creatures. You know what they said? Everything's somebody's baby. Like that explains everything. Doesn't it, though? The Tralaxian scientist mused. Humans have this ability to see past the dangerous exterior to the vulnerable interior. They don't just see a void stalker. They see a mother protecting her cubs. They don't see a crystalline threat. They see lost children trying to grow up. And somehow, Mox added, the dangerous creatures seem to understand this. It's like there's some unspoken agreement. Humans will help raise your young, tend your wounds, and protect your vulnerable, and in return, you don't eat them. It goes beyond that. Cathrix's antennae twitched excitedly. Have you noticed how many previously dangerous species are now considered valuable allies after human intervention? The Void Stalkers now help patrol shipping lanes. The crystalline entities assist with mining operations. Those predators on X-227, they started warning the colony about upcoming storms. Turns out they could sense atmospheric changes. Humans don't just help dangerous creatures, Ren realized, her scales shifting through patterns of understanding. They integrate them into their community, make them part of their extended family. Speaking of family, the Tralaxian scientist's tentacles curled in amusement. Did you hear about Station Delta 7's latest update? Apparently the Voidstalker cubs have started playing with maintenance drones. Martinez is teaching them to fetch. The bar erupted in laughter, a cacophony of different species' expressions of amusement blending together in the recycled station air. So, Cathrix raised his glass, mandibles arranged in what he'd learned was a passable imitation of a human smile. Here's to humans, the universe's most improbable apex predators who decided that instead of eating everything, they'd rather adopt it. To humans, the bar echoed, glasses, appendages, and sensory organs raised in toast. The species that looked at the galaxy's most dangerous creatures and thought, "Aw, somebody needs a hug." Somewhere on Station Delta 7, Tara Martinez was probably feeding protein treats to juvenile Voidstalkers while explaining stellar navigation to a tour group. On Colony X-227, Madison Taylor was likely checking on her latest batch of predator cubs. And across human space, countless other members of their species were undoubtedly finding new dangerous creatures to befriend, rehabilitate, and integrate into their ever-growing, impossibly diverse family. Because that's what humans do. They see past the fangs, the claws, the hostile exteriors to the living beings beneath. They understand, better than any other species, that sometimes the most dangerous creatures are the ones most in need of help. And somehow, impossibly, those creatures understand them right back. After all, everything's somebody's baby. And that's not even the craziest thing humans have done this cycle, Mox continued, ordering another round of drinks for the increasingly engaged bar crowd. Oh no, Cathrix's antenna perked up with interest. What could possibly top Voidstalker daycare? Ever heard of the Crimson Nebula incident? Ren's scales flickered to a concerned gray. You mean that restricted zone where those energy-based entities kept destroying research vessels? The very same, Mox confirmed, settling more comfortably into their seat. Turns out, we've been handling that situation completely wrong for the past 50 years. The Tralaxian scientist's tentacles curled inward with curiosity. How so? Well, about 3 months ago, this human xenobiologist named Dr. Morgan Lee gets permission to study the nebula's outer edges. Standard research stuff, nothing too invasive. But instead of using the usual automated probes, they insist on going in with just a small research vessel and what they called minimal interference equipment. That's suicide! Cathrix exclaimed. Those entities have destroyed ships 10 times that size. That's what everyone told them. But Lee had this theory. They'd been studying the pattern of attacks, you see. Said something wasn't adding up about how these supposedly hostile entities behaved. A Meridian observer, whose crystalline form had been quietly refracting light in the corner, chimed in. I remember the official warnings. Highly aggressive energy-based life forms, approach at your own risk. Right, Mox nodded. But Lee noticed that the attacks always followed a specific pattern. They never occurred when ships just passed through, only when they tried to conduct certain types of scans or deploy specific kinds of equipment. Ren's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue. So what did they find? Well, Lee's ship approaches the nebula, right? And sure enough, these massive energy beings start converging on their position. Everyone at control is freaking out, preparing to log another lost vessel. But then Lee does something completely unexpected. They tried to adopt them, didn't they? Cathrix's mandibles clicked in resignation. Better. They turned off all their scanning equipment, powered down to minimal life support, and started broadcasting music. The bar went quiet. Music? Someone finally asked. Specifically, something called whale songs from Earth's oceans. Lee had this wild theory that the energy beings weren't attacking ships. They were trying to communicate. All our high-powered scanning equipment was basically like shining bright lights in their eyes while shouting through megaphones. That's actually quite logical, the Tralaxian scientist mused. Energy-based life forms would naturally be sensitive to electromagnetic emissions. Exactly. And you know what happened next? The entities started responding. They began mimicking the frequency patterns of the whale songs, creating these incredible harmonies that rippled through the nebula. Turns out, the whole region is basically one giant nursery for their species. They reproduce by splitting their energy patterns, like binary fission but with consciousness. All those attacks were just parent entities protecting their offspring from what they perceived as aggressive scanning. Kathrix's antennae drooped in disbelief. So every research vessel was essentially walking into a nesting ground while shining spotlights and making loud noises, Mox confirmed. No wonder they got defensive. So what happened after they established communication? Ren asked, her scales now cycling through shades of fascination. Lee spent the next 2 weeks essentially having music lessons with energy beings. They developed this whole system of harmonic communication. Found out that the entities are not only sentient, but have this incredibly complex culture based on energy pattern exchanges. They're artists, in their own way. They shape the nebula's gases into these beautiful formations as part of their cultural expressions. And let me guess, Kathrix interjected. The human tried to help them somehow. Naturally. Once they understood what was happening, Lee designed this network of what they call harmonic buoys, devices that translate ship communications into frequencies the entities can understand, and vice versa. Now the nebulas become this incredible joint research station. The entities help ships navigate safely through their territory, and in return, we provide them with new harmonics to add to their artistic expressions. The Meridian Observer's crystalline form sparkled with amusement. That reminds me of what happened on the gas giant mining platform in the Orpheus system. Oh no, Ren's scales rippled with anticipation. What did humans do there? So they were setting up this automated mining operation in the upper atmosphere, right? Standard gas collection stuff. But they keep having equipment failures. Really specific ones. Like something was deliberately disconnecting certain components but leaving others perfectly intact. Let me guess. Kathrix clicked. Another misunderstood species? Close. They sent in this human engineering team to investigate. This one engineer, Jamie Torres, starts noticing that the failures always happen in a specific pattern. Components aren't just breaking, they're being repurposed. Repurposed? Several voices asked simultaneously. Turns out there's a species of gas-dwelling creatures living in the upper atmosphere, really small individually, but they form these massive collective organisms, kind of like your Earth coral reefs. They were taking parts from the mining equipment to build these incredible structures that helped them filter nutrients from the gas streams. And instead of stopping them, Ren began. Torres redesigned the entire mining operation to work with them, created these hybrid structures that serve both as mining equipment and artificial reefs for the gas dwellers. Now the creatures actually maintain the equipment in exchange for getting to use parts of it for their colonies. Mining efficiency went up 300% once they started cooperating. How do humans do it? Kathrix wondered aloud. How do they keep looking at obviously dangerous situations and seeing opportunity for cooperation? A new voice joined the conversation, a human engineer who had been quietly nursing a beer at the bar. You want to know the real secret? All eyes, optical sensors, and sensory organs turned to face her. We've been doing this since before we left Earth. Our whole history is full of moments where we looked at something dangerous and thought, I bet we could work together. We domesticated wolves into dogs. We figured out how to keep bees. We learned to work with all sorts of creatures that could easily have killed us. But why? The Tralaxian scientist asked. Because we learned early on that cooperation beats conflict almost every time. Sure, we could try to fight everything that seems dangerous, but it's so much more interesting to try and understand it instead. Plus, she grinned, you haven't lived until you've seen a Void Stalker cub trying to play fetch with a maintenance drone. Speaking of which, Mox added, I heard Martinez is starting an interspecies wildlife rehabilitation program on Delta 7. Apparently, the success with the Void Stalkers has other species asking for help with their dangerous creatures. Of course she is. Kathrix's mandibles clicked in what had become his equivalent of fond exasperation. What's next? Daycare for quantum anomalies? The human engineer's grin widened. Funny you should mention that. Did you hear about what happened at the temporal research facility on Europa? The bar collectively groaned, but everyone leaned in closer. Because if there's one thing the galaxy had learned, it was that where there's a human, there's a story about making friends with something that probably should have eaten them. And somehow, against all logic and probability, it usually worked out just fine. After all, as humans kept proving, everything's somebody's baby, even if that baby happens to be a temporal anomaly, an energy being, or a gas-dwelling collective organism that likes to rebuild mining equipment. The bar settled in for another round of stories, each more improbable than the last, all centered around humanity's peculiar talent for turning the galaxy's most dangerous entities into something approaching family. Because that's just what humans do. The human engineer's mention of Europa caught everyone's attention. But before she could elaborate, the bar's door hissed open to admit a rather flustered-looking Arxian protocol officer, their bioluminescent patches pulsing with excitement. "You will not believe what just happened at the Diplomatic Exchange Summit," they announced to no one in particular, though their trajectory brought them straight to the growing group of storytellers. "Given what we've been discussing," Ren's scales flickered amusedly. "Try us." The protocol officer, who introduced themselves as Zix, ordered something that looked like liquid starlight before continuing. "So we're hosting this major diplomatic event, right? Representatives from 17 species, including some that haven't exactly been friendly with each other. Everything's going fine until someone's personal transport pod malfunctions and crashes into the habitat dome." "Let me guess." Cathrix's antennae twitched. "A human got involved?" "Better. You know those maintenance tunnels that run between the diplomatic quarters? Turns out they'd become home to a pack of shadow stalkers." Several patrons nearly choked on their drinks. Shadow stalkers were notorious for being virtually undetectable until it was too late. Phase-shifting predators that could move through solid matter at will. "When the dome cracked, everyone evacuated to the emergency shelters," Zix continued, their bioluminescence patterns shifting to match their excitement. "Everyone except this human diplomatic aide named Dr. Morgan Quinn. They noticed the shadow stalkers were acting strange, not hunting, but actually herding people away from dangerous areas." The Trilaxian scientist's tentacles coiled thoughtfully. "That's not normal behavior for shadow stalkers." "Exactly. So, while everyone else is focused on evacuation protocols, Quinn starts following the shadow stalkers. Turns out, the pack had made their den in a maintenance shaft that happened to be a crucial structural support point. They could sense the dome was about to have a catastrophic failure, and were trying to prevent a disaster." "And the human figured this out how?" Mox asked. "Quinn had apparently been leaving food out for them for months. Said she noticed them during night shifts and realized they were actually helping keep the station's pest population under control. She'd been studying their behavior patterns and had even named them." Cathrix's mandibles clicked in resignation. Of course she had. So there's Quinn, in the middle of an emergency, basically having a conversation with phase-shifting predators using hand signals and food treats she kept in her pockets. The shadow stalkers led her to the exact point where the dome was most likely to fail. She managed to get a repair team there just in time to prevent a complete structural collapse. The human engineer snorted into her beer. "Let me guess. Now they're officially part of the station's security system?" "Better." Zix's bioluminescence rippled with amusement. "Quinn convinced station management to designate them as unofficial security consultants. They have their own dedicated living space now, complete with phase-shift-compatible food dispensers. They help patrol the diplomatic quarters and alert security to any structural issues before they become problems." "Just another day in human space," Ren mused, her scales shifting to a contemplative purple. "Though I have to say, it still doesn't top what I heard happened at the quantum research facility on Titan." "Oh no," the bar collectively groaned. "Oh yes." Ren's scales flickered mischievously. "So they're doing these experiments with quantum probability fields, right? Standard research stuff. Except they keep having these weird equipment malfunctions. Things appearing in the wrong places. Data readings that make no sense. But only in one specific lab." The human engineer perked up. "Wait, is this the Dr. Patel incident? You know about it? Are you kidding? It's become required reading at the Academy. Go on, tell them." So this human quantum physicist, Dr. Ravi Patel, starts noticing that the malfunctions seem to follow a pattern. Like, equipment would be rearranged, but always in ways that actually improve the lab's efficiency. Data readings would be wrong, but consistently wrong in ways that pointed to quantum phenomena they hadn't even been looking for. "Let me guess," Cathrix clicked. "Another misunderstood species?" "Not exactly." Ren's scales shifted to what the others had learned was her, "you're not going to believe this" color. Dr. Patel figured out that their quantum probability experiments had accidentally created a sort of, well, The official term is semi-sentient quantum probability nexus, but everyone just calls them quantum puppies. The bar went silent. I'm sorry, Mox finally said. Did you just say quantum puppies? Yep. Turns out, when you mess around with quantum probability fields enough, sometimes you get these entities. They exist in multiple probability states simultaneously and can manipulate quantum fields in ways we barely understand. And for some reason, they really like humans. Of course they do. Kathrix's antennae drooped in resignation. Dr. Patel figured out they were actually trying to help with the experiments. They could see probability patterns that our instruments couldn't detect. So instead of trying to get rid of them, he started designing experiments that could use their abilities. Now the Titan facility has an entire research division dedicated to studying and working with quantum puppies. How do you even contain something that exists in multiple probability states? The Tralaxian scientist wondered. The human engineer laughed. That's the best part. You don't. They stay because they want to. They've basically adopted the research team. They help with experiments, warn them about potentially dangerous probability fluctuations, and apparently really enjoy playing with quantum field generators. Playing? Several voices asked simultaneously. Oh yeah, Dr. Patel says it's like laser pointer games with cats, except the laser pointer is a quantum probability field, and the cat exists in 17 dimensions simultaneously. Zix's bioluminescence flickered in what might have been disbelief. And humans just accept this? They're literally playing fetch with quantum anomalies. Why not? The human engineer shrugged. They're helpful, they're friendly, and they've revolutionized our understanding of quantum mechanics. Plus, they're kind of cute, in a breaks the laws of physics sort of way. That's humans for you, Kathrix mused. Give them any inexplicable, potentially dangerous phenomenon, and they'll either try to help it, adopt it, or teach it to play fetch. Usually all three. Speaking of teaching things to play fetch, Mox interjected. Did you hear about what happened when they found those living black holes in the Carina Nebula? The entire bar groaned, but everyone leaned in closer. Because at this point, they'd learned that no matter how improbable the story seemed, when it came to humans making friends with dangerous things, it was probably true. After all, if humans could domesticate void stalkers, befriend shadow stalkers, and play fetch with quantum anomalies, what was a few living black holes between friends? The stories continued long into the station's night cycle, each more impossible than the last, all testament to humanity's unique ability to find family in the most unlikely places. Because as any non-human species could tell you, the most dangerous thing about humans wasn't their persistence hunting capabilities, or their problem-solving skills. It was their absolute, unshakable conviction that everything in the universe, from phase-shifting predators to quantum anomalies, just needed a friend. And somehow, impossibly, they were usually right. Living black holes? The Meridian Observer's crystalline form sparkled with curiosity. Do tell. Mox settled in, their normally stoic features animated with unusual excitement. Well, you know how humans have that saying about everything being somebody's baby? Turns out that applies to cosmic phenomena too. Oh no. Kathrix's mandibles clicked rapidly. Please tell me they didn't. They absolutely did, Mox confirmed. So there's this research station orbiting the Carina Nebula, studying what they thought were unusual black hole formations. Multiple smaller black holes exhibiting behavior that didn't match standard gravitational models. They kept appearing in patterns, moving in ways that shouldn't be possible. Let me guess. Ren's scales shifted to an anticipatory orange. A human decided to investigate? Two humans, actually. Dr. Olivia Santos and Dr. Daniel Park. They noticed that the black holes seemed to be playing with each other. Like cubs wrestling, except instead of fur and claws, they were using gravitational fields and space-time distortions. The human engineer nearly spat out her drink. Wait, is this the origin point incident? The one that completely rewrote our understanding of cosmic evolution? The very same, Mox nodded. Santos and Park theorized that these weren't just regular black holes. They were essentially cosmic infants, newly formed entities still learning to control their gravitational fields. And instead of staying away like any sensible species would, they tried to communicate with them, the bar chorused in resignation. Using gravitational waves, Mox continued enthusiastically. They designed this device that could generate controlled gravitational pulses. Started simple, just regular patterns at first. And the black holes responded. They'd mirror the patterns, then create their own variations. It was like watching someone teach babies to play patty cake, except with the fundamental forces of the universe. The Tralaxian scientists' tentacles writhed in fascination, but how did they prevent being pulled in? The gravitational forces alone should have... That's the really interesting part, the human engineer interrupted. The black holes were actively maintaining a safe distance. They understood they could hurt the humans by getting too close. They were being careful. Careful black holes. Cathrix's antennae twitched spasmodically. The universe has careful black holes. What's next? Oh, it gets better. Mox grinned, or performed their species' closest approximation. Once they established communication, Santos and Park realized these entities weren't just playing. They were trying to show us something. They led the research station to this massive gravitational anomaly deep in the nebula. Turns out it was some kind of cosmic nursery where these entities form. They wanted to show us where they came from. Zix's bioluminescence pulsed with disbelief. And now humans are, what, running a daycare for baby black holes? More like an interspecies cultural exchange program, the human engineer corrected. The Carina station is now a joint research facility. The entities help us understand cosmic phenomena we never could have studied otherwise, and we help them practice fine control over their gravitational fields. They're particularly fond of this game Santos invented, basically space-time tennis, using gravitational waves to bounce pulses back and forth. Space-time tennis, Ren repeated, her scales cycling through shades of bewilderment. With black holes. Better than what happened at the Dimensional Research Facility on Ganymede, a new voice chimed in. Everyone turned to see a quantum protocol specialist, their probability-shifted form shimming slightly in the bar's artificial lighting. Do we want to know? Cathrix asked. Remember that breakthrough in dimensional barrier research last cycle? The one that supposedly happened because of an unexpected interaction with a novel form of consciousness? No. Several voices breathed simultaneously. Oh yes. They were trying to study barrier thickness between dimensions, right? Standard research. But they keep getting these weird readings, like something was poking at their instruments from the other side. The human engineer's eyes widened. Is this about Dr. Rivera and the dimension hoppers? The very same. The quantum specialist's form flickered with amusement. Dr. Aria Rivera was running late-cycle experiments when she noticed the interference had a pattern to it, almost like something was trying to communicate. The bar chorused. Exactly. So instead of shutting down the experiments like protocol demanded, she starts modifying the dimensional sensors to respond to the patterns. Turns out there are these entities that exist between dimensions, kind of like cosmic hermit crabs, making homes in the spaces between realities. And let me guess, Cathrix clicked. The human tried to help them somehow? She discovered they were actually maintenance workers of a sort, the specialist continued. They repair weak spots in dimensional barriers to prevent unwanted bleed-through, but some of their traditional repair paths had been blocked by our research stations. They were trying to tell us we were accidentally creating dimensional weak spots by setting up equipment in the wrong places. So what did Rivera do? Ren asked, though everyone could guess the answer. She redesigned the entire research grid to work with their repair paths instead of blocking them. Created this whole system where we can study dimensional phenomena while actually helping them maintain barrier integrity. They even showed us how to spot potential weak spots before they become problems. And now humans are, what, coordinating with interdimensional maintenance crews? Zix's bioluminescence flickered incredulously. More like we've got interdimensional interns, the human engineer laughed. They're fascinated by our technology, especially our visualization systems. Rivera had to design special holographic interfaces just so they could play with our dimensional modeling software. They use it to show us things about higher dimensional physics that we never even imagined. So let me get this straight. Cathrix's antennae were practically vibrating. Humans have now befriended void stalkers, shadow stalkers, quantum anomalies, baby black holes, and interdimensional maintenance entities? Don't forget the crystalline entities, the energy beings, and the gas-dwelling collectives, Mox added helpfully. And they're teaching all of them to play games? Well, the human engineer shrugged. Everything needs enrichment activities, even if that everything happens to be a quantum probability nexus or a baby black hole. The bar fell into contemplative silence, broken only by the soft hum of the station's life support systems and the occasional dimensional shimmer from the quantum specialist's form. You know what the really scary part is? Ren's scales shifted to a philosophical blue-green. It's working. Every single one of these absolutely insane encounters has led to major scientific breakthroughs, improved interspecies relations, or both. Because humans understand something the rest of us missed. Zix's bioluminescence pulsed softly. It doesn't matter if you're dealing with a predator, a quantum anomaly, or a baby black hole. Everything in the universe just wants to be understood. And possibly play fetch, Cathrix added, to general amusement. Speaking of understanding unusual entities, the quantum specialist's form shifted meaningfully. Has anyone heard about what happened when they found those self-aware mathematical equations in the Planck space? The bar collectively groaned, but everyone leaned in closer. Because at this point, they'd learned that when it came to humans making friends with the impossible, the only real question was, what would they teach it to play fetch with? After all, as humans kept proving, everything's somebody's baby. Even if that baby happened to be a living equation that existed only in the spaces between mathematical possibility and reality itself. But that, as they say, is another story.